Hey everyone, it's time for another build order tutorial. This time we're going to be looking at Gumiho's Mech. He has a pretty stylistic way of getting to, late game, mid game mech. So I thought I'd take a shot at doing his build in particular on Proxima Station, so an easy map to get 3 bases. Here we go. Put down your depot. Barracks. Gas. Put SCVs into the refinery. You're gonna get Marines for your barracks, 2 of them in total. Natural Command Center. Search for overlords to snipe with your Marines. Factory. Reactor on the barracks. Your supply depot. Second refinery. Starport. Do not make extra Marines once that reactor is done. Leave it alone. Build a widow mine from the factory. You're going to build 2 of them in total. Medivac. Third command center, around 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Third gas. Put a tech lab on the factory once the second widow mine is done. Your 4th gas. Remember not to get supply blocked. Pick up your widow mines in your medevac and go for a drop. Build a Viking from the starport. Start your tank production. You're going to make 3 of these to start off with. Search around for overlords of that Viking, then build a liberator. Build 2 armories. Make your third command center into an orbital. Build a reactor on the starport. Put your third CC on location. Build 2 factories, 1 going on that reactor your barracks had, and start your 1-1 vehicle upgrades. Use that barracks to float around. Take your gases at your third base. You should be building Thors from your factory. Start Hellion production off the other factories. Build 2 medivacs off your starport. At around 7 minutes, fast forwarding here, build 2 more factories, and then get your 2-2 at 7:30. And at 8 minutes, you're going to have 2 Thors and at least 4 hellbats with 2 medivacs. And you're going to want to try and poke forward and see if you can do any damage while also getting your 4th command center. So the strength of this build is that it's really good macro. So if you get away with 3 CC without any damage done to you, you're going to be in a good position. It provides a tiny bit of harassment as well as scouting, so you should roughly know what they're doing, but it does take some skill to be able to actually scout with that medivac, liberator, and viking. It's a solid mech build order, so if you're going to learn how to mech and how to, actually produce in those factories, then this one is a good one to use. Max mech army is hard to beat, so that's kind of the reason you would go for mech in general, is just that eventually it does get to be very good, and it's not the usual way to play, so you can surprise your opponents. They don't bother scouting, that you put down additional factories, and they have entirely the wrong game plan going up against mech. Now, the weaknesses of this build is that there's no hellions in the early game, means lings can be a big problem, especially on maps that don't give you easy access to a third base. So there are hellion opener versions of this build that Gumiho also does, and they do give you a bit of safety, but this one gives you harassment and earlier siege tanks. It'd be helpful maybe more against the roach floods that can happen in the mid game. No hellion opener, only advisable on maps like Proxima. So again, without that easy access to a third base, you're going to be very careful with how you position your units and how quickly you take your third CC. Early mid-game mech can be overwhelmed, so like roach pushes, roach hydra, maybe even very fast hive, viper push. All those things are going to be difficult to hold. And it is not the usual way to play. So that was a perk, but it's also a detriment. You're not going to be able to copy a lot of players. Gumiho is one of the guys that does it, and some other Terran players are starting to pick it up, but it's just not the usual way to play. So it is going to be kind of like, you'll be playing bio 90% of the time. You decide throwing a mech build order, you might not be as practiced as if you played bio. Tips for this build: the Widowmine drop should always be a scout. Look for a Roach Warren, lack of drones to the third base, or even the natural, stuff like that. Can give you a bit of a heads up. Maybe you don't see the third as fast, maybe you build a wall faster, maybe you actually do build Hellions, like that type of thing. Walls can help deal with Zerg floods of any variety. Keep your tents protected is kind of the general idea, and a wall will help with that. Emergency SCV pools will also help with that. Vikings can buy time for turrets if the opponent goes mutas, so this kind of goes back to the scouting thing. There's not a lot of scouting to be done. Don't be too shy about scanning if you are really not sure what they're doing, because surprise mutas can kill you. Vikings are only a time buying measure to bigger and better things like missile turrets and Thors. Now, the 2 Thors for hellbat push is meant to punish a greedy Zerg player, one that is trying to respond to a mech player by taking 4 or 5 bases, 80 drones, you know, really pushing off that roach more and that type of stuff. If they're prepared, don't commit and don't feel bad about not committing because you still have 3, even 4 bases and have your production ramping up back at home. In the late game, build about 6 Vikings and look for Viper Snipes. That's probably going to be the most important thing because you are headed towards the late game more so with this build, and you're going to need to know how to deal with the Zerg army coming at you. And of course, if you like this content, then consider following me on this YouTube channel, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Instagram, supporting my Patreon, whatever. And also, go ahead and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.